The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome everyone to our remote hearing this evening on the Bruckner site's rezoning proposal. This is part 2 of yesterday's in-person hearing that took place at Bronx Borough Hall. I first want to acknowledge the many residents and community leaders and advocates and others that joined us in person for yesterday's public hearing to give testimony on the matter on the agenda before us today. And tonight is an opportunity for those that were not able to join us in person to provide testimony, support in different or opposing this item on the agenda. But we do want to hear from all of you. This is not typically done, but as the new Bronx Borough President and as someone who wants to make sure that everyone has a voice, whether you are able to come in person or remotely, we wanted to give that option. So typically, the office has only held one hearing, but for this time, we wanted to make it certainly available to everyone in the community that wanted to provide testimony. So last night was in person, and we thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank the team and the staff for making sure that last night's hearing ran as smoothly as possible. And tonight, I expect nothing different. Although we are remotely, we still are acting on one accord, and we want to make sure that we have a hearing that is respectful of everyone. You may not agree with what is presented, but we ask everyone to please operate and manage yourself and your behavior so that we can have a very smooth remote hearing. So once again, I thank everyone for being here this evening, and we look forward to working with you. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you to the applicant for joining us and everyone on tonight's call. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Borough President. I'm now going to go over the run of show. So for the public hearing, the applicant will make an initial presentation. The BP and staff will then be allowed to ask questions to the applicant team. Any elected officials that are present may then offer testimony. Statements from the general public will then begin in the general order they were received. There's a 2-minute time limit which will be enforced. The applicant team will not respond to questions after individual speakers. Written testimony can be submitted here and will given to us in any way you can and will be made part of the record. To speak, you'll need to raise your hand, use the raise hand function, which will put you in the queue. So you can all do that now if you're wanting to, and that will put you in the queue to speak. If you're on a phone, as Chris noted, and if he can verify this is correct, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And then when it is your opportunity to speak, you can press *6 to mute, unmute. We ask that there are no interruptions from the audience during the public testimony and everyone's opinions are respected. Please only unmute yourselves if you have been recognized to speak. We will mute people throughout as needed, but we, again, as BP noted, want everyone to respect one another. This includes written comments in the chats or any disrespectful statements that are noted in the chat. There was one gentleman who, or one person that we would ask that they also change their name. So the Michael case sucks, please. I don't want to directly address it, but I did. So please change your name or we will remove you from the chat. Again, it's part of the respect for everyone. Speakers may only speak once. This includes speakers who spoke yesterday as this is a continuation of yesterday's public hearing. This is a public hearing that is also being recorded, just so you are all aware. We are not going to read the docket as it was read yesterday, and we are going to go until every person has had an opportunity to speak. So we are going to turn it over to the applicant team now to present.
And I can confirm that you're correct. *9 raises your hand if you are connected by telephone.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening, Borough President Gibson and Director of Planning and Development, Jahan Hortzman, and members of the Borough President's staff, as well as members of the public. My name is Jacqueline Scarinci of Ackerman LLP on behalf of the applicant Throgsneck Associates LLC. I'm joined here this evening by other members of the ownership team, and we are here to thank you for letting us present this project again as part of the continued hearing, and look forward to sharing the project as part of the land use review process. We are here to share this vision for Bruckner Boulevard that is a unique part of Bruckner Boulevard that is in need of revitalization and modest new growth. This proposal applies to 4 block fronts along the Bruckner Expressway that are on the fringe of the lower density growth management area and does not directly impact the lower density character north of the Bruckner Boulevard block fronts. I'd like to address some of the testimony yesterday that mentioned that 34 tax lots and this rezoning would have broad impacts on the community and spur a lot more development than what is shown by the proposal. To be clear, that this map shows the areas that will be rezoned from sites A through C. And within this development rezoning area, there are 34 tax lots or portions of tax lots. 20 of the tax lots comprise the 4 development sites that are part of the proposal. There are 10 additional tax lots that were studied as part of the environmental review that would comprise an additional 3 developments. So that's 7 developments total. And across the entire site, the environmental review studied approximately 400 units. To be clear, that is a very conservative analysis of the overall number of units that would be developed by the project. And it also takes into account these other 3 additional sites that potentially would not be redeveloped as part of the rezoning. The project area fronts on both Bruckner Boulevard and East Tremont, which are 2 very important commercial corridors and are wide streets by zoning definition. The rezoning area does not go further into the mid-block in the lower density character that many of the people testifying yesterday from the community that are upset about the rezoning mentioned that this will trickle into the more lower density homes that are in the mid-block. That is not the case. And additionally, this rezoning, the zoning regulations would apply so that there would be a mandatory step down by zoning that within 25 feet of the R4 district, that the buildings would have to come down to 4 stories or 45 feet in height. Just overall, the rezoning context, this area is a crossroads for commercial and mixed-use development, as you can see, just north of the Throgsneck bid boundaries. And it is also near Miele Park and PSX 104, you can see just to the east. To discuss the overall project benefits, there are 6 main points that the project team would like to highlight. The first is food security, to retain the superfood town and 85 local jobs to allow for continued access to quality food for the local area where there's a lack of supermarket access. Permanently affordable housing for Throgsneck will create greatly needed new housing stock for local families. Given the down zoning 20 years ago, there has been little creation of any new housing, and given the city's affordable housing crisis, there is a need for housing in all communities throughout New York City, and specifically in Throgsneck, which we'll get into that and the specific benefits for Throgsneck as I move on through the presentation. There will also be senior affordable housing, which we've noted that Throgsneck in particular has a very high population of those 65 and over, with 16% of those living in poverty. and in need of senior affordable housing. There will be veterans housing to create housing opportunity for local veterans, especially those living with disabilities, and a youth recreation center to expand access to baseball and overall recreational opportunities for local youth. In addition, all 4 of these sites will have a lasting economic impact on the community, creating and maintaining permanent jobs within the community, as well as new city tax revenue. On the point of food insecurity, as you can see from this map, there are 2 supermarkets within 1 mile radius of the rezoning area. One of them is the superfood town of Throgsneck that has been in this community for the past 90 years, with the Bavona family operating the supermarket for the past 20 years. And they are the owners of Site A as part of the rezoning. The supermarket serves 700 to 2,000 customers per day and is open 7 days a week. They did not stop throughout the pandemic when many people were afraid and locked in their houses. Their supermarket employees came to work every day for the community and continue to serve all of the local patrons that are in need of fresh and quality food. Despite the large number of shoppers, the store has struggled economically, and given the significant and increasing real estate taxes and the needs for improvements to the current supermarket, the supermarket will have to close without this redevelopment plan. Permanent closure of Superfood Town of Throgsneck would negatively impact the community. Without the supermarket, community access to affordable, healthy food would be limited, and the risk of food insecurity would increase to residents of Throgsneck. The project would also generate permanently affordable housing, since the project would have mandatory inclusionary housing mapped over sites A, B, and C. Community District 10's own needs focus on an aging and unmaintained housing stock, and given the very low rental vacancy rate, 2.4%, and really high rates of those 65 and over living within CB10, and 16% of those living in poverty, there is a need for affordable housing and senior housing. That is why the project is proposing 99 permanently affordable housing units across sites A, B, and C, with MIH option 2. Additionally, the project has made some changes as a result of comments from the borough president and the community that there is a need for family size units that are at a larger bedroom size. Site A added 11 3-bedroom units down from originally there were 0 3-bedroom units as part of the proposal. So there is 44% will be 2 and 3-bedroom units for families. And Site B added 4% 3-bedroom units from 0 3-bedroom units in the initial proposal. So the overall unit count goes down from 114 units to 102 units, but provides approximately 20% of the units for 2 and 3-bedroom units for families. Additionally, we wanted to make the point that the downzoning that was 20 years ago has really resulted in District 13 significantly lagging behind the citywide average, with just 529 units generated from 2014 to 2020, where the citywide average was 3,051 units. Additionally, just to show the very low vacancy rate that I had pointed out, and it relates to a constricted housing market with no available stock. With additional seniors and families and children, and especially in Throgsneck for families that are looking to stay within the community, where will they go? It also directly relates to a less racially diverse district overall. We heard and also noted the need for senior affordable housing. And Site C was originally designed with just family units and has now been working with HPD to provide a 100% senior affordable housing project. This will have a 50% community board preference. So 50% or 50 of the units in this project would be given a preference to community board 10. And 28 of the units will be permanently affordable pursuant to MIH option 2. Site D is the 3-story building further down the Bruckner Expressway that will have 22 units of housing, working with the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, which is a nationally recognized organization for veterans housing. And this housing will be constructed by the developer without government subsidy, and will also provide services to residents and retrofit the units as needed for veterans with disabilities. And there'll be a local preference for Throgs Neck community veterans. Additionally, Site B within the project will have a 23,000 square foot youth recreation center with on-site tutoring, health and after-school camp and cultural programs. And this was a result of Community Board 10's need for youth wellness and recreation centers for children. The overall economic impacts here, there will be new commercial development along Bruckner and East Tremont. This stretch of properties has been overall underutilized. 2 of the sites have long been vacant and really in need of revitalization. And the other sites are in need of redevelopment. So this provides much commercial activity and new jobs for the community. Specifically, 85 of the supermarket jobs will be preserved. The team has committed to partnership with 32BJ to ensure 14 building service worker jobs. And then also 15 youth recreation center jobs, 12 jobs for senior services and the tutoring program and test prep center, and 350 temporary construction jobs. The proposed land use act and zoning actions that are before the Borough President's office today are a zoning map amendment to rezone the current R41 and R4A C24 zoning districts to an R6A C24 and R5B zoning district. A zoning text amendment to designate portions of the project area as an MIH area, and a city map amendment to eliminate Meyer Street on Site B. Here is a summary of the overall proposal. It will be 4 new buildings with residential and commercial uses, 309 total parking spaces, which significantly exceeds the required parking spaces across the sites. Approximately 269,975 square feet of residential zoning floor area. And then just going through the programs across each site, Site A and B will be are intended for a mix of individuals and families, with 30% of the units set aside as MIH units. Site C will be the senior affordable housing development with 99 senior housing units. Site D will be the veterans housing in partnership with the Siller Foundation. And then just going into the non-residential components, Site A will also have the new redeveloped Superfood Town supermarket, which will retain the 85 supermarket jobs. Site B will have the new youth recreation center, and the overall economic impact here is 126 permanent jobs and 350 temporary construction jobs. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Jacqueline. So I'm going to ask several other questions, and this might be a little bit a repeat from yesterday, but I think we have a lot of new people here, and I think that some of these questions are really important. So I guess I'll start off with Community Board 10 made it very clear from the recommendation that they were opposed to the rezoning in the project. They noted the project was within the lower density growth management area. It's that being close to the Bruckner can lead to increased asthma rates. The community board also noted they felt the rezoning proposal is a spot zoning issue. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on these concerns that were stated by the community board. And we've also heard them at the public hearing yesterday.
Sure. So on the first point related to the lower density growth management area, I think I pointed out in the beginning of the presentation that this project is really, it's along the Bruckner Expressway. Bruckner Boulevard fronts right on the Bruckner Expressway, and it's a major commercial corridor. It is really a unique area that is part of the lower density growth management area, but it is unique in nature that it's a commercial corridor and an area that does have mixed use development right now. But like we said, for the past 20 years, there's been very little development within the area. There's a need for revitalizing these sites. The supermarket will close. And this is an area that is on, it's along a commercial corridor, but also while it has access to multiple bus lines along Bruckner Boulevard and East Tremont, and an area that is on 2 wide streets that can support additional density. And also we heard the concerns about the lower density growth management area, but this rezoning, the R6A and the R5B, when they are mapped adjacent to the R4, which is what is occurring here, requires that within 25 feet of the R4, there is a mandatory step down by zoning, that the buildings will have to come down to 45 feet, and there also must be an 8-foot yard to really complement the existing conditions of lower density development that is just north of the sites and creates a more contextual neighborhood feel, moving from the Bruckner Expressway, which can support some modest additional density, down to the lower density scale that many of the residents very, very strongly testified yesterday they would like to protect. So I think there are protections within this proposal already for the lower density context and character that many of the residents want to protect. So that's on the lower density growth management area. The second point was related to spot zoning. Spot zoning is when you rezone one specific site and it's illegal. This rezoning has a rational basis. It is for areas that are continuous block fronts along the Bruckner Expressway, just north of the East Tremont bid. It is, I think, some of the same points that I just made related to the rationale for the rezoning, that it is a commercial corridor and it has transit along the Bruckner Expressway that can support additional density and housing, particularly affordable housing, on many on sites that are vacant and underutilized and in need of redevelopment.
Thank you. So something that is very important to the BP in this office is that any new development or proposals that come through need to work not just for any new buildings or developments that may be going in, but also for the existing community. We've heard in the last yesterday's public hearing, a number of people did not feel like this project met that criteria of working for the existing community. I'd like to understand how you feel, or how this project would, you have the benefits, which are great, but specifically for the existing community, how would this project benefit them?
Sure. So I think I'm using this slide for the specific benefits because this highlights the overall program of the project, but just going into each of them, for food security, I mentioned there's 700 to 2,000 customers at the super food town of Throgs Neck every day. In addition to that, I showed you the map where there are no other there's only one other supermarket within a 1 mile radius. This is the community's food infrastructure and provides quality food for the local residents, as well as, I think the Bavona family testified yesterday that they also do a lot of charitable work within the community, but specifically the supermarket goes straight to the heart of food security for Throgs Neck. In addition, there are 85 local jobs that will be preserved if Superfood Town is able to redevelop and come back in this location with the rezoning. On the second point, and really the third point, permanent affordable housing for Throgs Neck, 50% of the affordable housing units will go. They are community preference units that will go locally to those residents of Community Board 10. So that would be the buildings on site A, B, and C. So that's the affordable housing component. But I think also the owners of these sites are committed to marketing the market rate units as well to the Throgs Neck community. They recognize that there's a need for housing, that a lot of current residents are saying that they have to move to Long Island or Upper Westchester, and that there is there's a very low rental vacancy rate in Throgs Neck, and there's a need for housing stock. So, and then on the veterans housing, this portion of the project actually came out of community conversations that there are a significant number of veterans in Throgs Neck that are in need of housing, and partnering with an organization that specifically works on veterans housing enables the project to definitely move forward on this goal. The Youth Recreation Center, currently on site B, there are local batting cages that are, serve a number of children within the Throgs Neck community, and the team is working with them to be part of this youth recreation center, as well as to partner with local organizations that would help to run this specific center. And then the last point is just, the jobs, that a lot of them will be local permanent jobs for people living within the Throgs Neck community. The main one being the supermarket with 85 jobs.
Thank you. So the majority of the proposals seeking a rezoning from R41 and R4A, which those zoning districts have a height limit of about 35 feet. And you're seeking a rezoning to an R6A for the majority of the site, with the exception of site D, which then has a maximum height limit of 85 feet. Can you explain how you came up with the proposed zoning districts, and why not a zoning district with a shorter maximum building height?
Sure. I think in looking at the redevelopment and considerations for trying to include all of these benefits within the project, there is a need for a modest increase in the density that's currently there. Otherwise, as was shown in the environmental analysis, these sites will remain. They will remain in the current conditions. They're, sites C and D are vacant property that have been vacant for over 40 years. And they're not, you're walking along the Bruckner, they just become this vacant property that you're walking past, and there's no continuity along Bruckner Boulevard, which is really a commercial corridor within this area. So in looking at that, we were looking at mixed use districts for the area, and going to mix the housing program with the commercial benefits, and also having a youth recreation center and some of these community facility uses for the project. The R6A was determined to be appropriate because it's being mapped along wide streets, commercial corridors that do have access to transit. And that was how we arrived at the overall proposal for the R6A and the R5B for their east along Bruckner.
Since you mentioned the environmental review, can you succinctly break down the results of the environmental analysis and how the project could impact some of the major infrastructure components such as schools, parks, traffic? We heard yesterday concerns about fire, safety, police, that the additional density could bring into the area. So I believe you've done a full EAS analysis. Can you address some of the concerns and how? Yeah, address some of the concerns.
Sure. As part of the environmental review for the project, schools, there was a detailed analysis done on schools, also on traffic and transportation, and infrastructure is part of the SECRA analysis areas that the city requires for any projects that are doing a land use application. And it was determined that that the environmental review and the project, which is overall was studied about 400 new units that would come online, would have no significant adverse impact on the environment. And that determination was made by city planning as the lead agency. And, I think the concerns about infrastructure that were made yesterday are definitely heard by the development team, and those are things that I think, as part of the proposal, we would commit to working with the city. But it's not really the development team that can really fix some of these infrastructure problems. However, I think in proposing a lot of these community benefits, would work with the city to hopefully address some of these concerns. I think some of the points that were made on infrastructure related to flooding, just in looking at some of the items in the DEP pipeline, there is actually right now a $68 million infrastructure project at the pump station in Throgsneck. So there are hopefully infrastructure improvements that are coming that will also improve. And I think with new residents and new economic activity will only continue to improve. I think, their concerns are valid and heard for sure, but I think it's important to note some of these larger things, and there is a need for housing and for a supermarket and for all of these services as well. And there has to be a balance that's considered as part of this discussion.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask one more question. So you've brought up this supermarket or the grocery store, and either the possibility of it closing, or it would need to be, assuming that if this proposal got approved and you'd build that building, what would be the plan for the current employees that are working there, as well as any other jobs that would be created? We heard from 32BJ and other unions for construction. What is the plan for union jobs and the jobs within the community, or is there one yet?
Sure. So for the 85 local supermarket jobs, I think the plan is to retain these local jobs, and for the building service workers jobs, there is a partnership with 32BJ to commit to quality building service worker jobs across all of the sites.
I guess I didn't ask it quite right. During the couple of years that there would be construction occurring, those 85 grocery store jobs would not be able to continue at the current grocery store. What would happen to those people? Because a lot of those are local residents and their jobs, both very important things. So if you could address that.
Yeah, and that's something that the team has really thought a lot about, and especially I think you heard the supermarket manager and also another grocery worker testify yesterday that they've been at this store for the past 20 years, and their family works at the store as well. And so the Bavona family has committed to offering jobs to the supermarket employees at their other locations that are within the Bronx and throughout and other locations in New York City to ensure that they have jobs during that time, and then offer them a position once the new supermarket opens. It's intended that construction would take 24 to 28 months. So it would be, a temporary relocation, and then they could come back to Throgs Neck.
Thank you. I know we could continue to ask more questions. I think that's really important that we turn this over to the public to start the public testimony for day 2. So again, I want to reiterate and thank you all for your patience. In order to be put in the queue, you would need to raise your hand. So there's a little hand button at the bottom. If you press that, that will put you in the queue, and I will be calling people in the order that I see them. If you are on a phone, you need to press, I had it and I just moved my sheet. You need to press *9 if you're on a phone to raise your hand. And it'll be *6 to mute and unmute yourself, but we'll get there if there are people that are on the phone. So we want to begin. Again, I will be keeping time as well. So it will be 2 minutes per speaker. I'm going to go over the rules a couple times just because I expect some people to be coming in. It's going to be a little bit different than yesterday's meeting. Again, stay muted.
Excuse me, sir. I'm on my phone. I don't see where I could press *9 to raise my hand. I'm sorry.
Chris?
Yeah. So that's Ron, I believe. Yeah, who's speaking?
Yes, sir.
Ron. It looks
Yes,
like you're in the WebEx app on your phone.
Well, you know what? We could just start with Ron. I know that's jumping the queue, but it does solve the problem.
Sure.
If everyone's
Okay.
okay with that. It seems like let's just do that. And Ron, you're going to be and actually, if everyone at the beginning can also state their name, because I am keeping track, it's again a little different than yesterday's setup. So thank you again for all of your patience. So Ron, you are up for 2 minutes.
Okay. Real quick, I got a 2-part question. I don't understand when you were talking about how this project is advantageous to the people in the area, as far as property values and so on and so forth. And secondly, you didn't answer the question about the schools. Where will we get the extra room for the kids for the school? I didn't quite understand that. And there are supermarkets within a mile of Food Town. There's Key Food on Westchester Avenue, and there's the other supermarket up the block on Tremont Avenue. So I just like to get your answer on that. How it's advantageous to the neighborhood, number one. Number two, I mean, where are these kids going to go to school? This proposal passes. And you do understand, right, that if this passes, right, this is going to be other developers will then go to certain areas around here and try to do the same thing. And they could say to the city, well, you did it for them. Why can't you do it for us? That's what we worry about,
Thank you, Ron. Is that the end of your testimony? I'm going to assume so. Thank you. So the next speaker is going to be Carol DiChiara. You could unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm actually on the shuttle bus for the ferry, so everybody's going to be listening to my testimony. So first, I'd like to thank the Bronx Borough President for having this meeting. I have real concerns about the proposals project. I live 4 blocks away. I had 4 feet of water from sewers during Ida. I don't believe we have the infrastructure to have this project continue, as the developers have not yet to prove otherwise that the infrastructure will hold up. The traffic in the area is out of control already. We are a center point for Queens, Long Island, Westchester, Connecticut, and New Jersey. 2 lanes are just not sufficient right now, so I'm not sure what they mean by wide lanes. A new trucking facility, distribution center is going to be right down the road. We don't know how much truck traffic we're going to get in the area. We don't understand what's going to happen with that. Parking is completely inadequate as of right now. I have people parking in my driveway because there's not sufficient parking. I'm asking the borough president to oppose this project. No matter who they plan on putting there today. Sorry, I'm reading. It continues to change. Quite frankly, is very worrisome. The project doesn't seem to be about affordable housing or food insecurity. It seems to be about money and taxes for Bronx Neck LLC. And I just want to get that straight. This proposal does not protect our low zoning. And I have yet to see a charity that Bonavita has contributed to. I lived in the area for 56 years. I've never seen anything. So I'd like to know about that. And lastly, I work for Capital Construction for New York City for over 30 years. And any infrastructure project that is not already planned for
That's time, Carol.
would have to wait another 10 years to be approved. So I don't find this adequate. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, Carol.
Thank you.
The next speaker will be Scott Bernard. You can unmute yourself. I'll begin once you unmute. Go ahead. Oh, did we lose Scott? Let's wait just one.
Yeah, I see Scott lowered his hand,
Hello?
but he just unmuted. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Okay, I'll start you now. Go ahead.
Thank you. I first want to thank the Bronx Borough President for having us all here today. I truly appreciate her listening to us. I did not hear Jacqueline address the asthma situation, Juten, that you had brought up to her. As we all know here, that the Bronx has the highest incidence of asthma in the United States. I happen to live down the street from this proposed development, and I'm totally against it. I take my daughter to school in the mornings to Villa Maria, which is in Country Club. You cannot go up Crosby Avenue. The cars are triple, quadruple parked. I don't understand if you're going to have a building at the corner, how people exiting the building in the morning to leave to go to work are going to cut across Crosby Avenue and go wherever they're going. It just does not make sense to me. I've been stuck sometimes so much as even 10 or 15 minutes, just stuck in traffic while nothing happens. The other thing is too, we have a surgence of buildings being built. I woke up today to see that there's another building going up on Jarvis Avenue, which previously housed a one-family house. Now we're going to have, I think it's 24 units there. There's 30 going up on Crosby where I live. It's just unbelievable. We can't hold this anymore. The area does not have enough infrastructure. The traffic is horrible. I beg somebody to please listen to us. I live here. I've lived here 20 years. The past hurricane that we had, I had 5 feet of water in my basement. I'm right down the street from this place over here. My wife and I were both deathly ill with COVID, bailing out water at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I understand Mr. Bavono wants to make his buildings or whatever. Put it someplace else. Don't put it here. Leave us alone. If you want to build something, 2-family houses. 2 of my wife's families just moved here from the South Bronx, which most people do come from here nowadays. They both bought houses in Throgsneck. This is a viable area for people who come from the South Bronx that want to buy a little house. All right.
Thank you, Scott, for your testimony.
Very much. Thank you.
Next up will be Ankur Dalal.
Hi. Thank you so much for hosting this meeting, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify. I'm here to testify in favor of the development. I want to testify in favor of it because I think the city badly needs new housing, and this project will bring hundreds of homes, including nearly 100 affordable homes. And I think any opportunity we can get to build more affordable homes, we need that really badly. Rents are out of control in the city. I'm sure the borough president's office has seen that the average cost of a rental in this city is now $4,000 a month. And I know that some folks have talked about how there was a agreement back in 2003 to make this a low density area. I went back and looked at some newspaper articles from 2003, 2004 to see what rents were like there. And I found some articles in the Times, and they talked about how it was pretty easy to find rentals for less than $1,000 a month. There was an entire article in the New York Times about where you could go back then to find apartments for less than $1,000 a month. You can't find that anymore. Nowadays, you have to spend $4,000 a month to find an apartment. And this building will come with almost 100 apartments for seniors, for veterans, that'll be at affordable prices. I also wanted to call in because I read some of the reporting in Gothamist about the meeting yesterday, and I was a little bit upset that there were some racialized language against this project that I read about. And you know, I'm going off the reporting in Gothamist, but in Gothamist, they wrote and said that a private Facebook group of residents who opposed this project said animals would be moving in if they allowed this. And there was a protest outside of the Foodtown site where people said that there are going to be low-income drug houses coming in. To me, I hate language like that. My family is an immigrant family. We started our story in New York City, and my family moved to Queens originally, and then we've lived in the New York area the whole time.
Thank you, Anchor.
Just don't like that kind of language. Thank you.
Next up will be John Murano. You can unmute yourself, John.
Hello, Borough President and Jutan. Thank you so much for hosting this. It's well needed. Quickly, let me just go to my points. There is no community plan in place. Let's understand this is a private application. Back in 2004, I've been involved with the community board since 2007. Yes, 2007. And Jutan, we've worked very closely in the past regarding this topic and with city planning. None of these associates, along with the Throsnick Associates, have any development practice or any experience in developing properties. The Zuccarello family that housed the Better Grow lot has been abandoned for the last 25 years, close to it, and has done nothing to it to try to improve it. The other location, Marciano group, that property has been abandoned, has not been cleaned for many years until we got involved, the community board, with the complaints. Let me see. In 2004, 2005 is when the rezoning took place, and city planning stood by us and worked very closely with us to get this done, because they understood the issues in our area. In 2014 to 17, I sat on New York Rising Committee with a lot of people that are on this meeting.
Sorry,
New York Rising Committee.
Sorry, John. That's time.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you for your testimony. And remember, anyone can submit written testimony as well if you didn't have an opportunity to finish your thoughts. So you can email me or submit any way you need to get it to me, us. The next speaker will be Matt Mahoney.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Madam Borough President, thank you for hosting tonight's meeting. I'm Matt Mahoney. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the program, of the development. We are very much looking forward to having housing for our veterans who have worked so hard and have given of themselves for our country, deserve housing. And the Tunnel to Towers Foundation provides that housing all over the country right now for veterans and injured veterans. And the proposal here before you provide 22 units that we can have for our veterans here. All the apartments would be paid for by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. These veterans would essentially be given rent-free homes so that they can live in a community that they're from, live in a community where they work or have worked or had family. We choose our veterans locally in conjunction with the community and the New York City Department of Veteran Affairs, who we'll be working with on these projects throughout the city of New York. And we look forward to working together with the developer. We have an agreement with them to provide these homes. We're very eager to get in there and put our veterans in brand new housing. So again, we testify in favor. We look forward to this passing.
Thank you, Matt. 1 second, let me refresh. Next speaker will be, sorry, I assume you were done. Okay. Next speaker will be Stephanie Doherty. You can unmute yourself, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting this as well. I do want to ask, how is this going to benefit the school, which is right across the street from the development site or potential development site, where we've just had a lot of construction go on with a lack of reinforcement on the infrastructure to have, you know, an influx of students come in. But as I believe one of the speakers before mentioned, getting down Crosby Avenue just to do a simple neighborhood commute has become damn near impossible. Even just going in a short distance because of the double and triple parked cars and the cars that are actually parked in the Foodtown parking lot for drop off and dismissal pickup for their students. Also, the question is, how would the students, you know, how can we guarantee their safety? While I understand that Mr. Mahoney mentioned that we would have veterans, and of course, veterans are always welcome in our neighborhood, but we don't know who's living there. And in such close proximity, when we're saying it's lower income housing and all of this, while we do want to welcome everyone, how can we ensure the safety of the students that are going to school directly across the street?
Is that the end? Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Next speaker will be Aiden M.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Aiden. I've lived in this community for over 33 years. I grew up just a few blocks away from the proposed project sites, and my family is still there. I'm testifying in support of this project. Until last year, that Foodtown was my supermarket. I attended the last community board meeting, and I heard a lot of people talking about how the existing community wouldn't be served by this project and that life as we know it would be destroyed. And I was taken aback by that intensity because I think in reality there is a diversity of opinion here. And I know from my own personal experience that the lack of new housing forces even those people who grew up in the neighborhood their whole lives like myself out. And I know it might seem like this is the minority opinion, but it's true that, you know, people who grew up here are being forced out. I saved and looked for a place for many years. I wanted to stay close to my parents, my best friend, my family. My son attends school in the neighborhood, and I had to make a really hard choice, even though I have a stable, good-paying city job. I don't know if folks have had to look for new housing in recent years, but the reality is that outside of renting from a very limited available apartment pool or taking on, you know, $750,000 mortgage on a very aging home, there's not a lot of options. And I hear the concerns of my neighbors and I empathize with them, especially those about infrastructure, but I don't see how a modest project like this will have the impact that people fear. And firmly believe that, as a value, we should be open to more housing. As folks said, there are tons of people who want to live in this neighborhood. It's an amazing neighborhood. And even though I hear the concerns about cars, it's a very walkable neighborhood. We have good buses. We have a lifeline in the 6 train. I managed to live here without a car, even though my family has multiple cars. I gave up mine because I can walk around here. And I support this proposal because I know the neighborhood is a welcoming and supportive one. And I know folks deserve a safe and dignified, affordable home in a great neighborhood like this. It's a drop in the bucket when it comes to what the neighborhood needs, what the city needs. We have to build thousands of homes.
That's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
For your testimony. So John Sereni, you're next, but you spoke yesterday. Is it you or is it someone else? Because John, you're not going to be able to speak a second time.
Yeah, it's me. I don't understand why I can't speak if it's a different hearing.
It's actually the same hearing. It's a continuation of the same hearing.
There's lots more that I wanted to say that I couldn't say last night.
I understand, and we will accept your written testimony and we will read it, every word of it. But
there's a lot of statements that were made today that, again, just aren't factual. And I think that if you
John,
guys are going to base...
I'm sorry. These were the rules we laid out earlier. I appreciate your testimony and you joining today, and you continue listening, and you can give us any written testimony and we will read it. And that's what I can give you right now. But we're going to move on to the next speaker. Joseph D. Tiberis. You can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Joseph D. Tiberis. I've been living in this neighborhood about 36 years. I'm recently a new homeowner. I did it as a low-income person. I don't really make too much money, but I made a lot of sacrifice to be here. And I would think it's fair that you say this is for people for low income. I'm a living example that I could actually buy my own house. I've saved up, make a lot of sacrifice to be here. My rent is not expensive, $4,000. It's only $1,700. This housing that I bought let me become a low-income person to high-end income person. So it's really not fair what you guys are doing to me. It's really not about affordable housing. It's about rent. If you would sell this building, who would be able to afford to buy the 30-unit building? How long do I have to work? How hard do I have to work to get that building? I don't think it's fair. It's not right. And especially for people who live here, I don't think anybody had the right to live anywhere they want. If you have to move, I'm sorry to say, my parents were one of the people that had to move out. They had to do what they do best for them, okay? Nobody had the right to live anywhere they want. They have to do what's best for them. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Joseph, for your testimony. The next speaker might be Michelle. Michelle, did you speak yesterday? Because there was a Michelle that spoke yesterday. I only have your first name. Michelle? You may be on a...
Sorry. I need to, yes, I did speak yesterday, but I'm speaking on behalf of George Havernack, who couldn't join yesterday and couldn't join today because his wife is having surgery.
I'm sorry, but that person needs to speak for themselves.
Can I speak? I don't know how to do this.
One second. I want to just wrap up the thought with Michelle. Sorry, Michelle. You can submit that person's written testimony. We will accept it and we will read it. But
I thought you just told John he could speak to somebody else. No, was it mistaken?
I didn't know if someone else was listed on for his name, so that was the point I was making.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to Tim.
Hi, my name is Timothy Burke. I just wanted to speak out in support of this developments. Our city needs more housing. Most of my friends moved out of the city in the past 10 years because it's just become unaffordable. And even those of us who, do make some decent money, we make the decision to leave because we can get so much more elsewhere. I want this community to remain one where our family and children can stay for the next generation. So I just want to reiterate my support for this development. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. The next speaker will be Jen Toledo.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm in row, but I want to make sure. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Hi, I'm sorry if you hear some static in the background. I do want to say and kind of comment about the comments that were made about not finding affordable rents in our community. Actually, my family member just rented a $1,500 a month apartment, and my mother lives in the senior building on Randall Avenue, and currently there are 40 apartments vacant there. So to indicate that there is low housing available in our community is really false. And the people that make comments about the transportation, I actually take the bus and I literally have to wait for a second bus to get on because it is so crowded that I can't not even get on it. And it's really sad that folks that are making comments and saying that during a protest that they're making racial slurs. I'm a woman of color, and no one was making any racial slurs in any of the events. So I have attended some of them, and against the upzoning, because I do believe that we need make new development in those lots, but I think it should be within the zone. And I can definitely look at architects that can really design within the zone buildings with backyards for these community members, that those affordable buildings where young kids can go in the back, where the veterans can go in the back and play dominoes, play games in the back. Let's look at building things within the zone that mirrors the community, housing for veterans, for everyone. I welcome everyone. I'm a woman of color that lives in this community. So the fact of the matter is that there's plenty that can be done in those lots within the zone and to accommodate everyone.
Thank you, Jen, for your testimony. The next speaker will be Jason Mendes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to speak against the upzoning. I'm only 20 years old, but I did hear about this upzoning a few days ago, and I'm really appalled that New York City is taking away the suburban feel of the Bronx. Particularly, the Bronx doesn't have many low-density areas. When I say low-density, I'm meaning R1 and R2 areas. There are approximately 3 to 4 R1 areas and about 6 R2 areas in the Bronx, whereas in Bayside, Queens, and in certain areas of Queens, there are upwards of 30. We don't really have a Forest Hills in this section of the Bronx. And these homes are really modest-sized homes. My mother, I came from a single Black female-headed household, and I grew up about near 162nd Street between Girard and River Avenue. It was a mess growing up there, and when Yankee Stadium moved across the street, our block became a de facto parking lot for NYPD personnel and people going into the parking lot for Yankee Stadium. We would have to park down by Hostos Community College, even though I lived on 161st Street, and get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to move our car back after the Yankee games. It was a big disservice. We had a big community and we really loved our community. But my mother, being the person she is, worked really hard, got the home that we have right now in Community Board 10. And I think that it really helps us to have more housing in the area because a lot of disadvantaged people need long-term wealth in New York City. There's not much long-term wealth in New York City, especially for people who come from disadvantaged communities. And I think that it would be a great service for Food Town and other communities to build housing, build actually rooms and spaces where people can have a home and call home in New York City. Again, we don't have many low density areas. There are hardly any R1 and R2 areas in the Bronx, mostly in Queens, Staten Island, and some in Brooklyn. But I think that we are losing our suburban feel, and I think that having home ownership in New York City is a tremendous thing that we need to have. There's a lot of untapped potential in the Bronx, but I think home ownership is part of that potential. So I'm strictly against the upzoning, and I hope that the Bronx Borough President
Thank
sees
you
that.
for your testimony, Jason. The next speaker will be Nick. Apologies for the last name. Adwal Palker.
Adwal Palker, yep.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm speaking against this proposal on a couple of matters. My name is Pastor Susan Adelparker. I'm using my husband's account because I couldn't log on. I'm a local minister here, along with my husband from BronxCurrents Community Church. I'm speaking against it because, first of all, New York City has a way of saying affordable housing when it's not really ever affordable to someone making $15 an hour. Most people in this community are blue collar workers who own their own homes, or so I don't know what affordable really means. Number two, the cost of living will only go up because as these fill up, if this is passed, more people will want to move in, which will again make housing sparse, which raises rents again. Because a lot of times you make a community like this, livable and want people to come in, rent goes up because now people need to move in. Secondly, my friend, a single mother, Latina, just moved into Country Club with her 3 kids, 3-bedroom apartment, $2,400. Okay, so it's not $4,000. We don't have New York City, Manhattan prices. And we have to understand that this is a community that people want to stay here, but you continue to, make this bigger. You're pushing us out. And I'm a woman of color. I am Puerto Rican. My husband is Indian, Italian. We have many friends, people of color. This community is diverse, and I really dislike when people come in who don't know us and accuse us of racism, because a lot of people who are against it are people of color.
Thank you, Nick. That's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The next speaker will be Enrique Vargas. You're going to mute yourself.
Sure. And just special thanks to Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson for hearing us out. I'm a local resident here in the area, and I want to speak against this proposal. A couple of things that were said during the original presentation about diversity. This is a very diverse community. I am Latino. It's 36% Hispanic and 27% African American today. Also, any changes to zoning need to be considered in the overall light of what's been happening lately from a real estate development perspective. There have been a number of developments already that have added new housing and have caused real issues. And if you want evidence of that, try driving down Bruckner Boulevard. You get down to one lane, cars are parked on the left. You can't use the left lane, and you're down to just one lane. Now, just one other thing that I heard about the preservation of jobs. I don't understand what that has to do with anything. Either the place is profitable and they can maintain 85 jobs, or if it's not, it should fold. I don't see why we should be pressured into keeping our supermarket if it's a profitable business for them today, so that they can put up a new high rise. So anyway, that's my feeling. I am against the project. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Bronx Borough President.
Thank you for your testimony. The next speaker will be Margaret Allard. You're going to mute yourself.
My name is Marguerite Allard. I'm a lifelong resident of Throsneck. First, I'd like to thank the borough president and yourself for hosting this hearing. Totally against it. The infrastructure cannot handle it from the sewers. Again, Hurricane Ida, a lot of people I know were flooded out. The schools are overcrowded as it is. Try getting down Crosby any time of day except for overnight and before school starts. That's the only time you're going to be able to get through Crosby. I do not drive. I take the BX8 bus. That is overpacked. It goes straight to the train, packed daily. And these people that are coming will be having cars. They will not be relying on a bus to take them the 10 blocks or whatever to the train. Our community, our infrastructure cannot handle it. We do not need this. They can build some housing, but not what they want to build. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marguerite. I also want to point out if anyone wants to speak to get into the queue, please put up your hand. There are still several speakers, but I just want to point that out. If you are on a phone, you need to press, should have this ready before I start talking about it, *9 on your phone in order to also raise your hand to get into the queue. So the next speaker is Annie Bowler. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to make a point of fact. Racial makeup of CB 13 exactly mirrors New York City. 68% is people of color, 32% white. The blatant target zoning, picking of strategic locations that will kill low-density communities is statewide. There is plenty of as-of-right zoning to provide housing. How much development is needed? Can someone provide a rigid number? More development throughout the Bronx has not lowered rental costs. As a real estate agent, I can tell you that plainly. For reference, see the West Bronx and other areas. More buildings has not led to less cost. The land grabbers must be stopped. Diversity of lifestyle, the choices must not be removed in a very diverse city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Annie. The next speaker will be Greg Bafuto. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, just wanted to I didn't plan on speaking and just was spurred to because I'm struck by the sudden lack of courage by the number of people who are opposed to this upzone. They're very combative in public hearings. They cut people off. They've had people removed from their hearings. They've said racially insensitive things on social media and in person, and they're very meek in this meeting, I noticed, I guess in the presence of the borough president. So I just wanted to point that out, that the courage seems to have disappeared from these folks who are really just trying to build a wall around this community because they don't want the undesirables here. That's all this boils down to. This idea, this talk of, we earned our spot here, we put in the work to be here when they've bought their houses decades ago for very cheap. They inherited their houses and they don't really want to see low income and majority Black and brown people moving into the neighborhood is what this boils down to. And trust me, they are very combative in person, but they're very meek here tonight, which I find very interesting. That's all I really wanted to say. And I have no faith that this upzone will be passed. Our Councilwoman Velasquez has shown no fortitude in opposing these people and doing anything to fight back against them or resist them. So I just wanted to add that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Greg. So there are no current speakers. No one else is. Does anyone else want to speak that has not spoken?
I'd like to speak.
Who is this?
Rosalie Odo.
Rosalie, you spoke yesterday.
No, I was on the list.
I'm sorry.
My brother
Anthony
spoke.
spoke yesterday. Okay, my apologies. Go ahead.
I just wanted to address what Greg said about the people of color being allowed into the neighborhood. I'm born and raised in Harlem, and we've been coming to the Bronx since 1958 to visit. My uncle was the first person in our family to buy a home. And my theory is if people think racist, they're the ones that have that on their mind. If they have to hit the racism button. The neighborhood is mixed. We've been living here 45 years, but we've been coming to the neighborhood 63 years. And, we've seen the change and new people moving in. The problem is they can build housing. There's nothing against veterans. I have 3 brothers that are vets that served in the Army. I have a cousin who served in the Air Force. Just keep it within the limits. And as far as people that voice their opinion, they should come and be in the neighborhood. Come here for about, a few times during the week and see firsthand the congestion, the the crowded schools. I raised 2 children in the neighborhood. I have a 42-year-old daughter, 34-year-old son, and I have a 16-year-old granddaughter who's also being raised in the Bronx. So I've witnessed the overcrowding in the schools. And it's not fair to the children. You can't always be about making a dollar. We should work on what we have, improve what we have. And if they want to build housing for the veterans, the elderly, do it, but not big buildings. And Bruckner's always backed up. Because when I go into Manhattan, there's construction and it's backed up as it is. So just imagine adding more cars and more people to the area. But it's easy for people to say if they don't live here.
Thank you, Rosalie. That's time.
Thank you for your time, allowing me to speak.
There are a couple other speakers who have signed up. So the next speaker is going to be Asia. Sorry, 1 second, Asia. Who's speaking?
I apologize. My name is Debbie Ropp. I wasn't sure if my hand raising was getting through.
Oh,
I'll wait.
It's not. You know what? Why don't you go ahead? I'll start you right now. What was your name? Can you say it again?
My name is Debbie Roff.
Thank you, Debbie. Go ahead, Debbie.
I've been in the Bronx for 60 years. I've been in my community for 60 years. My parents are also immigrants. I'm against this proposal. And in my opinion, having seen the changes and the promises that were made to the Bronx for things for the betterment of the Bronx after the hurricanes and everything, we were begging for help from the city and get none. Yet now they're going to build opportunities for people who do not live here to come into the community that's already overwhelmed. City planning, they've already taken a lane from Tremont Avenue. They have bus lanes everywhere, which cause tremendous congestion and traffic issues. I know the city is broke, and I really do feel that they are looking to the Bronx, who never really gets much help, to be frank with you. I'm grateful that our assemblyman is against this. I'm hoping that our council person evokes deference. I'm hoping that my Bronx Borough president also hears the people who've struggled and given up for raising their families in these communities. We're not opposed to people that are different from us. Our community is diverse. But I'm opposed to being never helped in crisis, but now we're going to be influxed with another whole problem. There's no proper sewerage over there. Why didn't city planning propose that and get that done before they started with this? It just seems that this proposal wasn't well thought. In my opinion, I am grateful for the opportunity to speak. I am against this proposal, and I hope my Bronx Borough president understands why. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie. The next speaker will be Asia.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you, Borough President. I just want to say that I am in support of this project. I want to also make a statement that low income does not mean criminal. It doesn't mean that you're lazy. It doesn't mean that you're getting a prison to come into your community. What it means is that you get an opportunity to expand resources, to expand your neighborhood's voice, your neighborhood's community. And it means that you get to work together with your fellow New Yorker. Every neighborhood needs to do their share and build more, because we have 80,000 people who are now facing homelessness or experiencing homelessness. And most of them are not people that you would think are on drugs or criminals, but these are working people who live in New York. And quite frankly, we all know by living in New York, it is extremely expensive. So it's not just a matter of, we've have a number of comments about race right now, and we all have our different experiences with that, but it's also economic. It's an economic divide that's in New York City, and we need to really say that there is, and we need to come together as a community in different boroughs and build what we need to build so that we don't have, again, 80,000 people who are experiencing homelessness on any given night in New York City. And just because we have our own personal experience with our neighborhoods and we have this own personal attachment to it, where we now get to decide, hey, we don't want to build because I have my personal experience with it. This is not about your personal experience. It's about what does the neighborhood, what does New York need? What does New York need? And so I just want to say again that I'm for it, and that we really need to make sure that we are looking at this at a from a wide lens and not just our own personal backyards.
Thank you, Asia. The next speaker will be Dawn. Dawn, you can unmute yourself.
Actually, this is her husband, Frank. I had to use my wife's phone and her account.
Okay.
I am against this upzoning more for the reason of, not that I don't want to help people. I love helping people, but you cannot cripple a community. The size of it is too much. Also, I have a question with the the closing of Food Town. 2 years it's going to close. What do the people do for food in those 2 years, since they're so worried about securing the food supply? Those 2 years of building, the people are not going to eat. They're going to get their food from somewhere, and if they have to close, I guess the place they get it for those 2 years, they can get it forever. And that's all I got to say. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with keeping the community running properly. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Frank.
The
next speaker will be Efrain Gonzalez. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I want people in the entire Bronx that are weighing in on this, that are not from the community, to understand that this community is a low-density community, and maybe people may not understand what that means. And it's also a flood zone. This was not built to have the amount of housing that this project here, even though it's on the Bruckner, the community is overwhelmed. There's a reason why there is zoning, and you see that maybe sparingly there's a tall building in the area, going all the way even up to Pelham Bay and coming through Drogs Neck. We're just not designed for this. I work in the emergency department in Montefiore, Albert Einstein, and we have to also take into account with the school, more people coming into the neighborhood. Are we really prepared to have the influx of people? Maybe people think that it's going to correct itself, but folks, that's just not the case. And you can't have an agenda that's really not community oriented when you're dealing with low density. As you go all the way further into Drogs Neck, you understand more, but you have to be in the community. It has nothing to do with race. Why would you bring in people into an area where, first of all, it's middle class? This is not a low income neighborhood. And then to also impact them by having them go into the school system, because people do have children. I believe something for seniors would be more adequate, people transitioning into senior housing, but it has to be small scale. I'm talking no more than an R5. I don't know why anybody would think that having that amount of apartments is going to be beneficial. I could only imagine what the traffic is going to be like just taking the bus. So what I will tell people is, even if people, and we also got to tie into who the elected officials are behind developers. We got to look at everything. So as we think, I'm not surprised that this is being attempted, but I'm going to tell the community, and I'm going to tell the borough president, and I'm going to tell everybody,
Thank you.
Can't do that and make a big thing.
Thank you, Efrain, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next speaker will be Hugh. You can unmute yourself. Actually, just 1 second, Hugh. If anyone else wants to speak and they haven't spoken yet, please, again, put up your hand. It's the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Hugh is currently the last speaker we have. Go ahead, Hugh. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time, and thank you for Borough President. I'm strictly against this proposal. I moved out of Manhattan because I wanted to be in a lower density area. I don't want to see the continuation and the complete flood of people everywhere. You need to have parts of New York City that are diverse. We have a diverse population. We need diversity in New York City with our neighborhoods, different types, different structures, different appearances, different amounts of people. That is what part of what makes New York City great. That's part of what makes the Bronx great. Moved out of Manhattan, moved to a different section of the Bronx, wanted even lower density, came to this part. I bought my house a year ago. It's not that it's unattainable. I worked hard and I got here. We need to make sure that all parts of the Bronx and all people are represented. And that includes the desires of people that would like a little bit of green space and not to be inundated with people and tripping over them like you do in Manhattan. I'm probably under time, but that's about all I have.
Thank you, Hugh. So that was the last current speaker. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken yet wants to speak, either on the phone or?
Yeah, hello?
Who is this? Who is this?
Hi, my name is Danielle. I don't think my hand raising is going through.
You haven't spoken yet, correct, Danielle?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to say I really love my community and I want to continue to raise my family here. I've lived here my entire life. My family has always been here. I want to stay here. And I realize that everybody deserves a nice place to live, but that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice the quality of life for the people who already live here. It's just not right. We want a certain, way of life. We don't want to have people everywhere. We just want to live more like a suburb, and we should have that. And if the majority of people in this community are against this, the people who live here, work here, and spend our money here, who is this project really benefiting if the people who are here don't want it? So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Danielle. Again, is there any other speakers who have not spoken yet that are want to speak? Okay. Just anyone if you're on the phone and you would like to speak, you can press *9 to unmute yourself as well. Just one final, making sure that everyone has the opportunity before we close the public hearing.
Oh yeah, quick note there, *6 to unmute.
Oh.
*9 is the raise hand function, which I know a couple of people said they had issues with.
And actually several people just raised their hand, so we are going to continue. But yes, thank you, Chris. So Barbara, you can unmute yourself. Oh.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Borough President and staff, to speak tonight. I'm just wondering about the transportation situation in the Bronx. The Bronx bus redesign plan, I think, is going to be going into effect next week. The BX 40, 42, and BX 8 are losing bus stops. And those buses will affect this development. We are losing bus stops. I don't know how people are going to be commuting to and from these developments if there are no bus stops. You have veterans, you have elderly, you have people that want to come and live in the community and will have affordable housing. They may not be able to get a car right away. We've had many people tonight say a few things about the bus system and how the buses just are overcrowded. I don't understand how this development will benefit the community in that way. I have been taking the number 6 train into Manhattan every day of my life since September 1986, and I will tell you, I have seen things that I cannot unsee. We have too many people in this area. That train is packed. We've got people coming from Co-op City. We used to have people coming from Westchester who would come down and park here to save the money and not go on Metro North. People's driveways were blocked by cars all day long. I'm sure that people now that times are getting tighter, people are going to want to save money. People will be coming here to get on that 6 train. And I'm just very concerned. The train is not safe. It was not safe before the pandemic. The train stations are falling apart. Pelham Bay Station is a disgrace. Go to any other station at the end of the line in this city, and ours is probably the
just ridiculous. It is so awful. Just that it's falling down. We really need to do something for our community. The city needs to do something for this community before bringing other people into this community. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Barbara. Are there any other speakers, either on the phone, you can unmute yourself, or in attendance that want to speak? I'm not seeing any, I'm not hearing any. So we are officially closing the public portion of the hearing. I want to thank every one of you for speaking today. We had 63 total speakers between the 2 days. Overall, quite a few people came out in attendance to speak. I want to say that we'll still accept written testimony. And there are other opportunities to speak at the both City Planning Commission as well as the City Council. So I want to turn it over to the Bronx Borough President to say some closing remarks, and thank you all.
Thank you, Jatan, and thank you everyone for your participation tonight, for your presence, for providing us a lot of information that we are absorbing over the next several days during this process. I want to thank the applicant for providing us a summary of the proposal that's on the agenda, and really everyone for the past 2 days, but even before then, our office has received a significant amount of correspondence, both through social media as well as emails and letters and other forms of communication. And I really appreciate the volume of correspondence because people really do care. And I am grateful that many of you did recognize in terms of some of the remarks that were made. And certainly as a woman of color, and many of the people of color that live in the Bronx Neck community, taking that in a certain way, making sure that all communities are diverse. This is about balance, and this is about what is responsibly done and what is in the best interest of the current community, as well as future residents that we would like to welcome. But we want to be very clear that we are not in the midst of ever making racial undertones under any circumstances with any particular project. Because this is the Bronx and every neighborhood is reflective of the diversity of our borough. And I respect that, whether it's in Bronx Neck or anywhere else. I respect that you can go from block to block and you can see different cultures, ethnicities, nationalities, different food, and that's what makes the Bronx so special. So I want to thank everyone for recognizing that, because it's important that we not only maintain our diversity, but we also look at how we can maintain characters of our neighborhoods and so many things that residents over the years have fought for when it wasn't popular, when it wasn't the right thing to do, when a lot of people fled the Bronx. There were many of our elders that stayed, that invested, that saw the potential and saw all the great beauty. And now we're seeing a lot of our communities change. So I do understand that. I understand every concern that has been raised, a lot of the communication that our office has received. But I'm truly grateful as the borough president that you have given me a lot to absorb and to analyze and to review. And I want to thank you for your time, for your efforts, and really making sure that you are a part of a process. That's what this is all about. It's about making sure that everyone has a voice, making sure that everyone has the opportunity to engage and to talk about proposals, to look at ideas and best practices and creative approaches to how we build a better Bronx, how we address all the issues that many of you talked about, whether it's asthma rates, health disparities, traffic congestion, noise, quality of life, public safety, all these issues that we know are issues that the entire city of New York is facing. So again, I thank you. I thank you, Jatan, and the entire office for putting today's hearing together. And we will continue this process through making sure you have the ability to reach out to us via email with additional and supplemental testimony that you can provide. And as Jatan mentioned, we are a part of this process, but there are other steps. The City Planning Commission will also host a hearing, and I urge you to be a part of that as well as through the City Council. So thank you again, everyone. Be blessed and be safe, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much.